Hey guys, it is Jay from Whole Route. I have come out of hibernation, so the beard is gone. Hopefully it's getting warmer where you are. So let's get into it today. I wanted to touch on Medicaid. It's the biggest thing for new providers. How do I get into Medicaid? How do I offer transportation services for Medicaid? All right, it's going to be a little bit of a complex video. Firstly, let's start with this. Your service is non-emergency medical transportation. Medicaid is one potential payer of that service. Keep that in mind. I'll touch on why that's important to remember towards the end of the video. Typically, Medicaid and Medicare are grouped into one. The broker will manage both, except with Medicare Advantage plans, which I'll also touch on towards the end when I want to go over other opportunities that you should really be looking into when starting your company. But sticking with Medicaid. How do you get started in the industry? Firstly, you got to just register your business. Once you have registered a company, you need to register an NPI, that's your National Provider Identifier Number, with Medicaid. All that is an identifier for you to receive payments that Medicaid sent out. So whether you're a doctor, a dentist, a hospital, or even a transportation company, if you're offering a service that Medicaid pays for, you need an NPI. That's how they verify you are within their, network of potential people that they pay. Now, once you have your NPI, really all you're going to be doing is applying with the broker. Now, that sounds simple. That sounds simple, but it needs to be broken down. I'll go through what a broker is, whether you have to work with the broker or not, and then why only half of the providers out there actually ever get a contract with a broker, because literally only half of them are getting a contract. And then 70% of them that get the contract are out of business in the first year. It's actually crazy. So, firstly, there's a difference between a broker system and a direct billing, right? So a broker is a middleman. It's basically, you could look at it like a giant call center that just manages the operations of the transportation program for Medicaid. So they manage everything for Medicaid, okay? Let's say you're in a state, I'll touch on the different types of broker systems per state, but let's say there's a statewide broker system. So in this state that you're in, there's only one broker for the whole state. This broker is responsible for the entire program. So once you have your business and your NPI, you register. They're responsible for onboarding you, making sure that you meet all of the requirements that Medicaid and the state has in order to do business, ensuring that you have the right training, insurance, equipment, vehicle types, and everything in between. So, pretty straightforward, right? The issue with brokers is that they take quite a percentage out of what Medicaid pays. Statistically, it looks like 60 to 80% gets taken out, so providers don't make that much. You need to do a lot of volume when starting out. And the problem with that is that most providers start out and they're only getting a couple trips a day and they're not even close to breaking even. This is one of the biggest reasons why only 70% of providers, or 70% are not in business at the end of the year, because they relied on only one opportunity. You got to think about it. If you just shoot out an application to a broker and that's all you're doing as a business owner who just started their business, that's not a business. That's applying for a job, right? You got to be responsible for the success of your company. I know it's kind of blunt to say it like that, but so many providers don't make it, and I think it's because they don't know how brutal the business world is. Now, I'll tell you how you can really make sure you're going to get the contract. Not guarantee it, but significantly increase your chances. But first, let's touch on the brokers just a little bit more. Depending on your state, there are a number of different ways that NEMT can be administered. It may be that there's a statewide broker, which is just one broker for the whole state. There may be a regional broker system where, for example, Arkansas, I think Pennsylvania, they'll have each county or groups of counties will choose, they get their rights to pick whatever they want to do for NEMT, and they always, 99% of the time, they contract with brokers. But in these states, there may be multiple brokers in your state. So wherever you are, you might be applying to 2 or 3 or 4 brokers. Same thing goes for an MCO-based NEMT program. So MCO is a managed care organization. it's kind of like a reseller of Medicaid. So in New Hampshire, we have New Hampshire Healthy Families, WellSense, and can't remember the third one, but these are the companies where if you need Medicaid, you'll sign up with one of them, okay? And so in an MCO-based contract, each MCO can contract with a broker. It's always great if one broker contracts with all of them, so it's less confusing for providers. But a lot of the time, the MCOs will contract with different brokers, and which you want to submit applications to every broker that operates within the area that you'll be serving. Again, there are only 2 states. I can't remember if there might be 3, but Colorado and Vermont don't have a broker system in place, so you can direct bill. Colorado is changing that very soon, it looks to be. Vermont, it's not a broker system, it's not direct billing. They have kind of an association thing going on. Yeah. So you have to apply with the broker. So once you have your business and your NPI, these are the guys, the broker's the one that will onboard you, make sure you have everything in order, train you, get you into the portal where you'll start accepting, rejecting trips. Now, when I say they'll make sure you have everything you need, that's kind of a catch-22. One of the biggest reasons why providers don't get contracts is because the broker a lot of the time just isn't accepting more than one provider in a certain area. And there are so many providers joining the industry that a lot of the time when you apply with a broker, you are one of 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe even more if they're looking over applications of the past few months that are applying at the same time. Most of the time, they're only looking for one provider. You got to think about it like this. A broker isn't bringing on providers when they have 50, 60, 70 trips that need to be fulfilled. If they reach that point where there are 50, 60, 70 trips that are not getting fulfilled, they've already lost the contract for Medicaid. The requirements are incredibly strict. They need to fulfill all the trips. So they're usually bringing providers on when there's an increase of Medicaid enrollments. Their provider network might start to look like it's going to be getting strained soon. There are those exceptional 1% scenarios where you're applying in an area where an established provider went out of business and there's a vacuum to fill and you start really strong. But 99% of the time, that's not going to be the case. And you need to keep that in mind. We'll touch on why. I know I want to focus more on Medicaid and how to get into it, but I really want to focus on also don't rely solely on one opportunity, especially Medicaid alone, due to the fact that it's broker run. The fact that 70% of providers don't make it in their first year, it should be a red flag for you, right? Now, since when you're applying, you're in competition with other providers, your application should be top tier. There's a very good chance. So from my experience, 80 to 85% of new companies have not owned a business before or not owned a transportation company before. But there's a good amount of companies that are applying to work with a broker that, have been established for many years, maybe as taxi companies, and they have large fleets. And they're prepared, they're trained, they have experience, they have great reviews already. Now, if you're one of 2 providers applying and you have no experience, you have no company, you have no reputation, there's no verification of who you are, and there's that company, who's getting the contract, right? So one of the biggest reasons why providers don't get into the industry successfully is because they don't understand on every single level, your ability to obtain business is your business's ability to sell and market itself. On every level, it is a sale. It literally is a sale. So you'll fill out the application with the broker, right? And they're going to ask questions there. Which routing dispatch software do you use? If you don't have one, find one that you think you're going to use and put it there, right? They're going to ask you what experience you have driving. Now, I will never condone lying. You shouldn't lie, and I'm saying for the record, you shouldn't lie, but you're in competition, you need to sell yourself. If it were me, if I didn't have driving experience, I'll think about every time I drove a friend anywhere my entire life, and I'll add that up to 2 years. I got 2 years driving experience. Yeah, you got to be able to impress them, right? Another thing, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, is your website. How do you start a business without that? Half of the brokers out there now are requiring new providers have a website. Even if your broker is not requiring that, the fact that that's become a trend to where half of them are requiring it shows you something. I'll touch on that for 1 second. Most brokers have started with something called a driver employment program, which is really where they're willing to hire you as an hourly wage driver, just like an Uber driver. The reason why that's become a thing, and this is a very bad thing, this can cripple the industry. If they're trying to turn this into Uber, it's game over, because it's already bad when it comes to the rates as it is. The fact that they're moving in this direction, here's the thing, they're almost justified to an extent. 70% of providers that come in and get contracted are out within a year. You got to think about the time and money that it takes for a broker to go through your application, to verify who you are, to go through your training requirements, to go through inspections on your place of business, to onboard you into the software. They go through all this, all the paperwork, all the manpower. 70% of the time you're out of business. It's not really cost effective for them anymore, so they want to just hire people as drivers. That's one of the reasons why they want to see websites. They want to make sure you're a company that's prepared to do business in the world, not just have one contract, because that's just an employee. If you're just applying with a broker and good night, it's the same thing as just applying for a job and hoping you get the job. As a business owner, you're never endingly growing, and you are responsible for your own success. If you are relying on that broker, and I don't mean to be rude, but you have to hear this now because you don't want to have to say it to yourself later, you're really just an employee. So make sure that when you fill out your application, you are extremely competitive. Now, before you apply, call the broker. I cannot tell you how many times providers have called me back 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 months later, losing their minds because they submitted an application. They didn't plan anything else in the meantime. Broker calls them back and tells them they've been put on a waiting list. Typically, from the point of application, the average turnaround time, if you're going to get the contract, is 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it can be a bit quicker, but really expect around 3 months to get in. The problem is, from my experience, and I don't want to bash the brokers here, they won't tell you if they're not actually accepting applications right away. So a lot of the time you go 3 or 4 months, they'll tell you that you're on a waiting list. Or, this happened to a provider very recently, they had 2 ambulatory vehicles, right? That's passenger vehicles. They applied with a broker in Florida. 4 months later, the broker called them back and said, hey, can you get 4 wheelchair vehicles? Because if you can do that, we can bring you on. Otherwise, we don't really need you right now because this area has a big surging need of wheelchair. I guess a provider went out of business over there. And the person couldn't afford it. And they had put all their eggs in that basket and they could not move forward. So before you ever apply, call your broker. Ask them 2 questions. 1, are you accepting providers right now in this area? Double down on the question. What's the trip volume look like? Are you actually in need, or am I looking at 1 or 2 trips? Right? Second question, what types of vehicles do you need from new providers? Ambulatory, wheelchair, stretcher, do you need shuttle buses? Whatever you need, I got it. But you want to know ahead of time so you don't waste your time applying. If you can't actually give them what they need, you're not going to get the contract, you're going to waste all your time. Anyway, make sure your application's filled out well. Now again, as I said, they'll give you the requirements. So if you shoot your application, they're willing to work with you. They'll come back and say, hey, okay, we need to verify your insurance. We're going to be doing inspections. You're going to have this equipment in your vehicle, so on and so forth. Now, you don't want to rely on the fact that they'll provide you all that information. So I'm going to give you some information that you will be able to utilize to make sure you don't look silly. Again, you might be one of a couple of people that they contacted back. They might be only looking for 1, but from their experience, every other provider is not really ready. They come back with a list of things that say, hey, we're interested in working with you. Give us this stuff. And it takes you a month and a half to get everything set up. And the other provider's all ready. Yo, I got my website, I got my insurance, I got my vehicles, got all the equipment. The next day they reply. And you're sitting there 1.5 months later replying, and the broker's like, I'm sorry, we already brought somebody on. That is what actually happens. You have to understand. I've spoken to every single provider that's coming to this country, almost, into this industry for the past 5 years. This is exactly what happens to providers and why half of them don't ever get a contract. Okay, so make sure you're prepared. Actually, when you do call the broker, the third question to ask them, apart from are they accepting providers in the area? What vehicle types are they looking for? What are the insurance requirements? Is it the state's Medicaid's requirements, or do they require above and beyond? You can get that going as well. Get a quote going with an insurance agency. If you need help on that, contact us through our website. We got a form, and we work with NEMT agencies that insurance agencies that specialize in non-emergency medical transportation. Anyway, there are a few other things that you need. You can find it online. I don't want to make the video too long, but the equipment in your vehicle, seatbelt cutters, window breakers, you'll need a certain type of fire extinguishers, triangles, and a bunch of stuff like that. First aid kits, and so on. Yeah, so make sure you're ready and your application is complete and that you look better than anybody else applying. Okay? Hugely important. Now, you get in. They're going to go through what you need. If everything checks out, now that process can take time. If you don't have what they need and you have to come back and provide it, sometimes it takes them another month to come back and review it. So really, really take this preparation phase before you ever go out there. Build the foundation of your business first. Be ready to submit full applications to anybody perfectly. But anyway, if everything works out, they'll make sure you have the correct trainings. They may have specific trainings that you need. Usually it's just first aid, CPR. Some states require PASS certification, defensive driving certification. It's not in every single place. So you'll really want to check with your broker before you... It's not really wasting your time. Get the certifications, but the broker may have specific other training programs that you'll have to go through. If everything works out, they'll onboard you into an account online, and that's the account where you will receive trip requests, and you can accept and you can reject them from there. Okay, there's another way that you'll receive trips is by the broker giving you calls, and that happens very often. If you really become established, you're looking at 100, 200, or more calls per day, and these are really on-the-spot trips. And what typically happens in this industry is you get some providers, they just accept every trip for the next day, even though they can't take them. So they'll accept 200 trips, but they can only do 100 of them. 100 trips get canceled, and then they're calling other providers frantically. Again, starting out, you're not looking at many trips. Most of the time, it's just a small handful of trips. You got to understand, you're paying around $1,000 to $1,500 on insurance, about the same on fuel, and a host of other expenses. And you got to understand, however tough it might be to set your business up properly right now, every day forward that you move that you're not specifically profiting, you're actually losing the little nest egg you have left. So you gotta be sure you're getting into this industry. But that's all it is. That's all there is to it. You'll apply with the broker and hopefully get in. Again, half of the time you won't, and half the time you will. So make sure that you diversify how you're going to obtain business. Don't rely only on a contractor. I know it sounds easy, but seriously, that's the same thing as Uber. That's why brokers have a driver employment program now, because they're realizing that providers come into the industry and will only rely on them, and that most of the time won't work, and the broker knows that. So instead of them having to deal with this 70% turnover rate, they'll rather just employ you. And at that point, okay, fine, you work with the broker and you work with Uber and you work with Lyft, and there's no shame in that. But if you're going to start an independent business and you're looking to make real wealth, it's going to take a little bit more than just submitting contracts and laying back. Every business at its core is a sales company. And whether you're doing private pay, municipal programs, XYZ, even with the broker, you are selling your company against competitors. They need to know why they're bringing you on board. And that's pretty much it. But that's really how it goes. Medicare and Medicaid are pretty much the same. There is a Medicare Advantage plans. I think Part B or Part C, I forget now. But it's a different kind of Medicare plan. I think it was 2021. They just expanded their NEMT benefits. They don't always work with brokers. So what you can do is you can Google, NEMT Medicare Advantage plan in my area. Say it's Aetna Better Health. So, and you're in Orange County. You look up Aetna Better Health, Orange County, provider credentialing. Find the phone number, call them. Ask them about how to get started offering NEMT services. And they'll either refer you to a broker or they will have you apply on their website. Now, if they refer you to a broker, it's probably low trip volume. A lot of time, not so worth it. But even though it's low volume, if it's direct billing, you're getting a lot of money per trip. I don't want to stop anybody from working with brokers, right? Do everything at the same time. Goal number one is to fill every single time slot with a trip. High paying, low paying, doesn't matter. Get your time filled. Once you have that established, then, maybe you see, wow, my broker trips, I'm not making anything. I want to build up more private pay. Then work on replacing your lower paying trips with higher paying trips from there. But from day one, it's insanity to only apply with the broker. I'm telling you, I promise you, your likelihood of failure is so high if this is the only goal you have. Medicaid in reality, for a provider that pushes in all directions, from what I've personally seen, Medicaid with a broker is maybe 15, maybe 20% of the total potential revenue that you can make. That's how much more money you can make through other routes. And it's worth the effort now. I've done this for so many years. The reason I have this much passion isn't only because I want you to get a website with me. I love doing websites because I know how successful providers become off of it. You can't even imagine it. The broker is not going to give you trips, but guess what? 100,000 searches online every month of Medicaid recipients that don't know they're supposed to call the broker call you. And you say, yeah, I can take that trip. Here's the broker's number. Let them know you want to be transported by me. Now that's a person that goes 3 times a week. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 12 trips a month. Get 10 of those, that's 120 trips a month. You're building your own trip volume, number one, and you're also having the brokers hear your company name mentioned over and over again. They're starting to realize they're very reliable. Make sure it is a quality site. Whole route's the way to go. But besides that, seriously speaking, it just so happens that that is one of the biggest cores because your sales and marketing. Medicaid, get your business registered, get your NPI, go on ChatGPT. It's AI. Forget about Google. I'm telling you, if you haven't used ChatGPT yet, you don't know what you're missing. Google is worthless at this point. Go on ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, what is the NEMT program like in my state? Is it an MCO, regional? Is it a statewide broker? How do I get in? Who's the broker in my area? ChatGPT is 1,000 times better than Google. Find that information, okay? Try to review some information online about that broker. Give them a call. Ask them the general requirements. See if they're looking for providers. Shoot the application through. But you will have to have insurance. You'll have to have your vehicles. And again, they're the ones they're going to tell you. One broker may have different insurance requirements from locality to locality. And it's not publicly advertised. It will be soon. We're working with most brokers on a unified platform where all applications go through. We'll be able to see exactly what they're looking for and whether or not they're accepting applications. That's part of the program that was supposed to be towards the beginning of this year, but it looks like it's going to be pushed a little bit towards the end of this year now. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. You get in. But trust me, I don't want to see you in pain. You don't want to rely only on that. It's like investing all your money into just Uber when it's already saturated. It is a saturated industry. NEMT is not a saturated industry, but Medicaid is relatively saturated in most places. Anyway, I hope that helps for those that have questions about Medicaid. Yeah, and put comments down in the description. You know, if you have any questions, if you want videos on other issues, I will never stop talking, as you can see. All right. Have a good one, guys. Stay warm.